And we are live.
Good morning, everyone. It's the one, the only Senor Silverback himself, the monkey of monetary mayhem, and the master of the flux capacitor. With our powers combined, we are Captain. We're not definitely not Captain Planet. We're Captain something. We're like the dynamic duo where we bring you the news, the views, and all the information important to you. Check us out, roguemoney.net. Yours truly is actually working on an article. It's called Multipolar, the New Normal. We're going to be laying out the entire multipolar world and what it looks like. In the meantime, check out the distinguished crew over at Rogue Money from Baxter Slayer, Ken, the Shotgun Shorjan, a.k.a. the Professor, Wolf Gray, the Wild Man from the Carolina Woods, and the one and only Russian, a.k.a. James the Russian Analyst. We also post articles from London Paul as well as Harley Schlanger from LaRouche back, as well as whatever updates we can get from our Syrian sources on the ground there in Syria as to the latest developments as to what's going on in the chessboard that is the Middle East, where the dollar goes to die. You can also check us out on Twitter at The Rogue Money. Follow us on Facebook and every single podcasting app known to humanity, as well as every new blockchain-based decentralized app like DTube, Steemit, and everything else. And man, I need to get involved in mines. And I don't know what. Do we have an account ever at Gab, CJ? I know I keep asking you this. How do
You
you?
know, there was just so many
What?
accounts.
You
There
know
were so many accounts to manage. Yes, I am making an excuse. I am making an excuse officially on
no.
air. I'm
I was just
making an
trying to.
excuse.
My whole thing is
I think we
why
do have an
have an
account.
invite system? Like, why do I have to like Gab? Listen to me. Listen, you guys want to grow?
You don't
Get
have
rid
to
of
have
this
invites
stupid.
anymore, V. You don't have to have invites
You
anymore.
know? You mean
No.
we can go right now and set up a Gab account? Is what you're telling me?
Yes. Yes,
You
I'm
need,
telling you that. Yes.
like, we connect it to the Twitter, or does it work that way?
I don't think it works that way. I think it's an independent, system.
Okay.
However,
Yeah.
they can't ban you and everything like they're doing with Roger Stone and anyone that says anything that's not SJW friendly.
I know. We're definitely not SJW friendly. I'm too much of a gorilla to be SJW friendly. I have a very intimidating visage, CJ, that SJWs will find shuddering. Can't deal with all this hair.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah. Hey,
you got
I
man.
think I've plugged this documentary to you, but I finished it last night because I kept forgetting to go back and watch it. But for you and for our listeners, if you get a chance on Netflix, there's a show called the Good American, and it's a documentary regarding the NSA cryptologist Bill Binney.
Oh yes. Go ahead.
But the information, and it's so relevant to today, especially after the incident in New York. But go watch it because it's pretty eye opening in terms of the data gathering and how it's working and how Bill Binney was working to fix that. The problem was is because it became so corrupt, money became involved. They started contracting out so much of the work, to third parties, probably primarily so they could avoid any type of internal issues. But needless to say, when they plugged Bill's system into the events of 9/11 and the information that they gathered, pretty much would have stopped completely that event from happening. And I think that's what scared them so much. And I think it's relevant to today as well, V, because when you think of the amount of information that's coming in, it's just way too much. They can't follow up on anything. When they do, they interview people and then they let them go, and then 6 months later they're doing something. But obviously, our surveillance state that I don't agree with, it's failing because they're not pinpointing it, and it could be out of political correctness and everything. But go check out that documentary. It's a good show.
You know what
The
these
Good
idiots
American.
have done? The brilliant minds that are working in intelligence and agency should be a euphemism. In essence, what these morons have done, bro. Can you imagine if you and I say, hey CJ, let's go dig for gold in the ocean floor, and you're like, all right, man, let's go do it. And you and I charter a boat that allows us to troll the ocean floor, okay? And after trolling the ocean floor with these huge drag nets and equipment and all that, and we're all of a sudden we have thousands of tons of soil that we raked from the ocean floor, and then we bring it on shore. And now we got this massive pile of crap that are tens of thousands of tons. And now you and I have to go look for little tiny gold nuggets in it. You would tell me, okay, after the amount of money, which will probably cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe if not millions of dollars, to do what we just did, you and I were able to find maybe 3 ounces of gold. In other words, the cost that's enumerated or encumbered by this type of operation yielded so little in terms of profit. Okay? But that's what the NSA does. That's what the government does. The only difference is that because you and I are private sector individuals and we run a for-profit company, what you and I would simply do is like, yo, this is the most unprofitable BS that we could ever do. Let's scrap this idea, CJ, of you and I trolling the ocean floor, and let's find another way of extracting gold from the ocean. Right? We'd find another means. The government, on the other hand, would do this. Well, we got 10,000 tons of crud trolling the ocean floor. We spent a couple of $1 million doing this. We had to pay off, tens of millions of other, individuals who had to sign off on forms and this, that, and the other. And we were able to get maybe 2 or 3 ounces of gold. What do? Well, let's just keep doing it because this is just what we do.
Let's get more money at it.
Exactly. And that is the difference between the government and the private sector. This is the difference why the free market will always be better, will always offer a better solution more cheaply than the government. Look, folks, I've given you the analogy. If the damn oceans of the world dried up tomorrow, we would still build submarines and have a bucket line from a fire hydrant all the way to the shipyard with people pouring buckets on the submarine because that's just what we do. That's the government's mentality, okay? And remember this also, once a bureaucracy is created, the main purpose of that bureaucracy is to what? Stay in existence. So if it means that, hey, your budget's got to grow next year, guess what you're doing, buddy? You're gonna get yourself a little Ahmed and Mahmoud and Walid and Muhammad. Okay, you're gonna get a couple of these guys. You're gonna make sure their IQs are around 70 or below, and then you're gonna radicalize them. You set up some false flag operations, and you come in as a shining hero at the last minute to save the day, and then boom, your budget's grown. This is how they play. And this is corruption. Why? Because there's money in the game. They're guaranteed funds because the American taxpayer is a sucker. That's why this happens. CJ.
Exactly. No, great. And the other thing that's coming out here recently and why this is so important is we are witnessing, you and Bix covered a lot yesterday in regards to the truths that are coming out. And another one broke literally overnight last night. So Donna Brazile, who was the interim DNC chair, you remember when Debbie Wasserman Schultz was outed and she took over, she has a new book out and she's actually published an article that's currently up at Politico magazine right now. And she is exposing the entire collusion between Hillary Clinton and the DNC and how the Clinton campaign basically took over the entire DNC. And why this is important. Why this is important, because anytime that conservatives, patriots, Tea Party, anytime that we make comments or we expose the truth about, and I know our listeners know this, right? I think we're engaged with it. But when they have a member of their own party, when they have someone, a figurehead of this importance, to come out and specifically state, hey, this is what happened. So in this article, V, real quick, she just maps out specifically when she took over as party chair, she had no idea of the underworkings of the agreements, the secret deals that had been passed. Now, she doesn't go out and jump out and say that they were illegal. She says that they perhaps could be construed as unethical, which that's probably probably the least that you could state what this is. But whenever she took over, that the DNC from Obama's years, right? Obama's years left the party $24 million in debt. Of that, 15 million in bank debt alone, and 8 million was owed to vendors for his 2012 campaign. Typical Democrat fashion there, V, right?
Of course, of course.
So what they did was is that the only way that they could basically get the DNC level to pay off this debt was to enter an agreement with the Clinton campaign that promised to pay off the DNC's debt, to raise money for the DNC. At this time, when she took over, and she couldn't understand this was the fact that the DNC was running a burn rate of their money, of their debt, at $3.5 million a month. And she couldn't understand. She's like, why are we going through so much money each month? So in order to compensate this, basically the Clinton campaign would basically take a look at all the states fundraising efforts, right, for local elections and everything else, and they would just rob those banks. They would go specifically after each state, take that money out, leaving pennies on the dollar for state elections, just to prop up the Clinton campaign. And all of this was done with an agreement that the DNC entered in with Hillary Clinton. But it clearly shows me at the end of the day, and I like how she states this at the end of her article, when she specifically, had promised Bernie Sanders that she would look into the level of corruption, was that she felt pretty much, powerless at this point, because now she's not trying to play victim. Don't get me wrong, but she did, because she obviously probably does believe in democracy. She does believe in an open, free, and transparent election. So I think it's fair to say, based upon this, V, and the truth is coming out. The truth is coming out. The fact that the DNC, that there was no primary last year in the DNC. They knew from day one that Hillary was going to be their candidate. My only hope with this information coming out is that enough Americans, enough libertarians, enough people understand that neither party has the best interest of the American people. Both parties have grown into these huge corporations of greed, of corruptions. And as we've stated numerous times, V, it's not time to fix a system. It's just time to end it. I'm glad this information is coming out. And I think it's just the start of many more information to come out regarding the truth of what's going on, V.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The route is on, CJ. The route is on. Let's break this down, buddy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, everything from the entire campaign that's going on right now is regarding the administration, regarding the truth, regarding the entire information of the corruption that exists, right? So with Trump winning the election, and the FBI, the undercover information, everyone understood that the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Attorney General Holder, knew of this entire deal that went on with this whole Uranium One deal, right? And now there's lines being directly drawn to Obama, to the administration, that he specifically knew of this corruption that was existing regarding this deal, and pretty much looked the other way. So the takedown, the takedown that could occur because of this is massive. So you're talking about the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. You're talking about Eric Holder. You're talking about Valerie Jarrett. You're talking about Barack Obama. This massive corruption system has existed. Probably one of the most corrupt things that occurred in Washington politics. It's taking like pay for play to an entirely new level, V.
Yep. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to spot the massive amounts of felonies, okay, and that the Justice Department and congressional committees, Senate oversight committees can investigate. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what even journalists can look into this and see that, you know what, there's so much here that can be publicized. And in terms of the law, this is law breaking. This is prosecution. This is jail time, bro. This is serious. and I don't think people realize the seriousness of this. That is why the fever pitch is racketed up to 11 with this, Trump dossier, the arrest of Manafort, left wing publications stating that, oh my God, everybody in the White House is terrified of Mueller. Nobody gives a rat's rear end about Mueller. Okay, nobody gives. Mueller is terrified of Uranium One because you got to understand, one of the key individuals that was involved in the Uranium One deal is Mueller. So you got one guy who's a co-conspirator, okay, in the Uranium One deal, and he is now a lead investigator and a special counsel investigating Russia connections. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is going to blow. Mueller, you are on borrowed time. If you're not working for the good guys, if you haven't flipped to the good guys, and you're doing the work, and you're not doing the work of the good guys by really going after the Podesta group, going after the Clintons, I can care less about Paul Manafort. He's, like I said before, he's a low-level influence peddler. I don't care. But this whole thing, if Mueller is not, let's just say the theory is Mueller is a sheep-dipped deep stater, which the majority of me thinks. Okay, there's a small little percentage saying, what if this guy is a double agent? What if this guy flipped to the out of the dark side and into the light, and he's now a full-fledged Jedi or a Padawan in training, and he wants in on the good guys club? What if? Just what if? Just being crazy. I mean, crazier things have been thought about before, CJ. And I said to myself, just what if? If he is a double agent, a good guy, okay, and he is out there doing this, then there's a reason. But if he's not, he's in a whole heap of trouble. He's on borrowed time, CJ. There's going to be such an outcry of this because you can't keep this buried for long. It is bubbling to the surface. Pressure is building on this, bro. Seriously building on this, CJ.
Yeah, I mean, just massive, and let's pray for the safety of Attorney Victoria Tossing, and also this FBI informant who now can testify in front of Congress as she broke down on Hannity. And this is this is huge news that back in the days between 2009 and 14, when Barack Obama was president, was the fact that he was briefed on this corruption that was occurring. He knew in fact that the Clintons, when Hillary was Secretary of State, he was briefed on the fact that with this Vancouver Uranium One company, right?
Yep.
He knew that the information was coming out that 9 investors in Uranium One, okay, that's the company that was granted the sale, the permission to do this, gave $145 million to the Clinton Foundation. Shortly after that, Bill Clinton received $500,000 for a speech sponsored by a Russian bank. They knew this, the level of corruption. And again, I know we've said this numerous times, until there's handcuffs, until there's people walked out of their DC mansions in orange jumpsuits, we can't rest on this. We can't let any type of backdoor deals be brokered. You know how that happens, with, hey, we got this information on you, but this is what we want. You need to tell the DNC to get in line, the Democratic, is get in line, and we can't allow that to happen. We need to keep exposing the truth so that this level of corruption can be exposed.
Oh man, it's incredible. It's incredible. It's like that line from the Godfather book, man, where you got the whole power structure with the Corleone family, literally falling apart. They don't have and that line is saying that you don't have much muscle anymore. The Godfather's sick. You're getting chased out of New York by the other families. You think you can find it easier picking cereals? I'll give you some advice. Don't try it, Mike. That whole line. It's like that. But the whole thing is Trump may be weak, like a Michael Corleone was weak, just before he wiped out his enemies. Okay, but I'm telling you right now, bro, this is big, and it's not going anywhere. It's getting bigger. There's a point where it can no longer be ignored. This cannot be ignored. You cannot look at the Uranium One deal and say, "Oh, this is opposition research," as opposed to what they did with the Russian dossier. This is serious. So embrace yourself. Oh man, it's going to be interesting. Very interesting indeed. We called it, CJ. We called
This,
it.
yeah.
What did we call? Tell the audience what we called.
We questioned from day one regarding Jared Kushner and his
Ew.
coming aboard the administration as a White House counsel. I remember V did a special Rogue Report to specifically go after all the information that was just public knowledge regarding the corruption, the family background of Jared Kushner. We
Mm-hmm.
just felt at that time that, listen, this guy has no business. He couldn't get a job as a teller. How many times have I said that?
He couldn't.
As a teller in a bank.
No,
This
he
guy is
really
so in
couldn't. He
debt.
could have passed. He could not pass the security clearance. He really couldn't.
So now it's finally coming out, and as far as this information, and yes, it's being published by Breitbart, which we know that Steve Bannon and the level of that they came out with Jared Kushner and him not at odds against each other, but now it's coming out specifically that Trump is specifically uh, accusing or placing blame
Good.
on a lot of these failures that have occurred and things that continue to happen specifically on Jared,
Good.
which is so true. And the reason why I'm excited for it is because it is time. It's more than time that him and Ivanka go back. And I have nothing personally against either one. Don't take me wrong. What I want is for America to prosper. I want America to go in the right direction. And they have no business in DC. It's gonna come back to haunt him. And specifically when Mueller starts looking into the financials of Jared and his companies, who knows what they're going to find. So I would separate at this point proactive approach, get rid of him, because that's going to be right around the corner as far as Kushner and his dad, and who knows where their money came from, and who they're taking kickbacks from.
Mm-hmm. 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 And you cannot, you got to also understand who this idiot Kushner, who I think he should be designing onesie pajamas for beta males. That's what Jared Kushner should be doing. He should be designing the Jared Kushner line of onesie pajamas. If you're a beta male and you like it tight and hot in the crotch area, then you need the Jared Kushner onesie pajama. It is so tight and so constricting that it would make you vote and register as a Democratic woman. Maybe that's what happened to him. Anyway, go ahead, Jay.
Well, yeah, I mean, even his whole background, even his whole, oh yeah, he was a Harvard
He's a
graduate. Well, yeah,
bullshit artist.
he was a C average student, and his dad pledged like
$2.5 million
$6
to
million
get him in. Yeah,
to
to
get him
get him
in.
in. Dude, this is
Yeah.
this is the crazy delusion of Kushner. He's never earned anything in his life, and all his business ventures is a total failure. And yet he has tricked himself in his own psychosis to think that everything he has in his life he worked hard to earn. This is a guy who could. I mean, come on, man. At best, he would be a D grade accountant somewhere. I don't know, working for like Ernst and Young or something like that. At best, at worst, he would. I don't know. At worst, I have no idea. But it's ridiculous. And then what does he also do? He pulls in Dina Powell and Gary Cohn into this whole entire thing. I mean, come on. I mean, He has a great way. This is a kid. This is the equivalent. Bringing Jared Kushner in and the Ivanka in is like bringing two kids into a kindergarten, giving them soda pop and pixie sticks, and then a shotgun, and see what happens to the class. You want to talk about bad decisions? It's bad decisions everywhere, man. Unreal.
Yeah, you want to break down the new Fed chair? You want to break that down regarding Powell?
Mr. Powell, Mr. Powell, Mr. Powell. He's the new Fed chair, Mr. Powell. Well, President Donald Trump has picked Jerome Powell to be the next federal chair. Okay, what do we know about Jerome Powell? Okay, well, let's look at some of his monetary policy rules. Let's look at this, okay? The 64-year-old Powell has backed Yellen's policy of gradually raising interest rates if the economy improves as projected. You and I know that is horse poopy, that the economy is not improving. It's actually, it's still in free fall. Recent public remarks has him sounded optimistic, saying that he expects inflation to move up to the Fed's 2% target. Every central banker you talk to, whether it's in the United States, the EU, or Japan, I bet you if you talk to the central banker in Zimbabwe, he will tell you that his inflation target, his inflation rate is 2%. Why? It's the most craziest thing, this 2%. You go to some Wall Street firm to invest. What's your fee? 2%. You go to a central banker. What's the interest? What's the interest? Where are the interest at? Or inflation? Where's inflation at? Oh, it's at 2%. 2% seems to be the magic number between all these banksters. All of it keeps pitching it. They all pitch it. 2%, 2%, 2%. You and I all know it's between 9.32 and 10% is the actual inflation rate in the United States. So off the bat, officially, Mr. Powell has no clue what the real inflation rate is. That is troubling. It's very troubling. Mr. Powell has said that I would view it as appropriate to continue to gradually raise rates. In terms of the shrinking Fed's portfolio, now this is where it's funny. Powell in September voted in favor of beginning the years-long process of winding down the central bank's $4.5 trillion portfolio. Translation: the Fed has a $4.5, close to $5 trillion balance sheet. How are they going to offload it? Well, they're going to have to do whatever they can to keep the U.S. bond market alive. They got to do whatever they can to keep it going. And that means whatever money they can swish around and move around, whether it's in the repo markets, whether it's in IRS, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Maybe buying more bonds and shoveling it into Euroclear. God knows how many other locations at this point. But Powell's in favor of winding it down to $4.5 trillion. Again, these are all criminal numbers here. Like Miss Yellen, Powell said that the Fed could resort to a new round, just as I said, new rounds of asset purchases in another crisis if the economy needs more stimulus. Because that always works, right, CJ? More stimulus from a central bank has always worked.
Yes.
Yeah. Who are you stimulating, Powell? Who are you stimulating? It's not Main Street. It's Wall Street. How much more stimulus can you pump into zombie institutions? How much more benefits can a bank get in terms of being nationalized, pretty much, having all the benefits of nationalization with none of the risks? Putting new assets on the Fed's balance sheet would be an option, only in quote-unquote extraordinary circumstances. Okay, sure. It is monetary policy rules, my man. Powell has joined several of his Fed colleagues warning against relying too heavily on mathematical rules, such as the so-called Taylor rule, to guide monetary policy. That could put him at odds with congressional Republicans who have pushed the Fed to adopt a formula in an attempt to make Fed policy more transparent and predictable. Simple policy rules are widely thought to be both interesting and useful, but to represent only a small part of the analysis needed to assess the appropriate path for policy. That's what Powell said back in February. I'm unable to think of any critical, complex human activity that can be safely reduced to a simple summary equation. And there's your freaking problem right there. CJ, did you catch that? Remember what I've always said, dude? The bankster's greatest asset, the greatest thing, the greatest trick that the bankster does to the human population is this. Ooh, the stock market. Ooh, finances. Oh my God, it's so complicated. Only we, the initiates, we, the wizards of finance, we are the only ones that can decipher this data for you. You need us. Ooh, don't look at the numbers. Simple balance sheets, minus addition and subtraction. Ooh, percentages are too complex. You can't understand them. Ooh, you can't do it. No, don't look here. Only we can interpret for you. You need us. No, no, don't go over to the blockchain. We don't like blockchains. No. And again, there's the problem with Jerome. Jerome Powell is another banker or bankster who spent way too much time within the gears of the machinery, because look at his stupid statement. I'm unable to think of any critical or complex human activity that can be safely reduced to a simple summary equation. In other words, he's saying, don't ask us about to put out a transparent sheet of numbers for you to decipher and understand. It's too complex for you guys. Jerome, stick it straight up. Jerome, I recommend you turn it sideways, dust it off, and stick it straight up where the sun don't shine, brother. I'll tell you right now. Makes no sense. Again, this is dangerous. Powell. Let's talk about Powell and Dodd-Frank, right? Okay. This is what he said. Okay. He calls for revisiting, supervisory requirements imposed on bank boards of directors and blah, blah, blah. He says in his views, the role is one of oversight, not management. That, he said in the 2015 speech, means that boards should not be saddled with an ever-increasing checklist, okay? He wants to ease some of the burdens that have been imposed on Dodd-Frank, which who cares? It's no overarching bill, whatever. The whole thing with the Fannie and Freddie thing, it doesn't matter. Okay, these are some of the points that people are talking about. This guy's a Princeton grad, and he was a lawyer. He was a lawyer in New York. He was a lawyer in New York before he joined the investment bank Dillon Reed and Co. I wonder if Danielle DiMartino Booth, whom we've interviewed here, who wrote the book Fed Up, knows this guy, Jerome Powell. Maybe we should get
I'll reach
her
out
on.
to her. Yeah, I'll reach out
to her. They
to
both worked at the same firm, man. They were both at Dillon Reed.
Yeah, let's get her opinion on this.
Yeah, let's get her bring her on and see what her opinion on Jerome is. He stayed there until he joined the Treasury Department in 1990. After he left Treasury, he became a partner. And this is where it gets bad, dude. This is where it gets real bad. He became a partner in 97 at the Carlyle Group. Okay, that is basically the George W. Bush hangout.
Yep.
The Carlyle Group. George H.W.'s old alma mater right there. And then he left Carlyle in 2005. He's also likely to be the richest Fed chairman ever. His assets are worth anywhere between $21 and $61 million, according to financial disclosures, which require officials to give a range of value. He's just, it's irrelevant. Who cares? Why don't they just put Grimace? Why don't they put the Hamburglar in as the Fed? It doesn't matter at this point. None of these a-holes are going to fix anything. None of these a-holes are going to correct the account. The Fed needs to go. It needs to die. That's what it needs to happen. It needs to be brought in check and brought under the control of the Treasury Department. That's where it belongs. And rename the Federal Reserve into something else. Call it the American Central Bank or something like that. Put it under total control of Congress. Put it on the blockchain. Its creation of money and credit has to be on the blockchain. These are the things that needs to be done. But Jerome Powell, who cares? He's cannon fodder. He's just another bankster. That's it. Moving forward. What else is new, buddy? We got Israel provoking war. Let's talk about that. Then we can talk about Georgi Schwartz.
Yeah, I mean, we just need Israel to taper it back and to, we talked about the last time, is to stop with this provoking, war, with Syria. It's not productive. It's not accomplishing anything. Now, we granted, that they're probably upset. They're in fear that, they know that the attempts to overthrow Assad in Syria completely failed. But these latest rounds of destroying, what they call, weapons depot and everything, they're completely I mean, they're completely acting out alone. There's nobody. The emperor has no clothes. The U.S. is not going to be there to defend them. So they need to understand that there's. If you take a look at, and we've talked about this several times, that the entire sphere of influence in the Middle East has completely changed, and for their sovereignty, they need to dial this back. There's no need to escalate anything at this point.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And what do they hit? They hit a copper facility. You might say, so why is that important? Well, you need copper. Copper is very vital for infrastructure redevelopment. I mean, think about it, man. If you're hitting like copper facilities, you're hitting power plants, and these are areas that have been liberated by ISIS, right? These are areas liberated by ISIS. These are areas where people are trying to rebuild. You need copper. You need it for piping. You need it for wiring. You need it for a lot of things in construction. You hit a copper facility, you're preventing people from rebuilding. This is freaking terroristic, man. This is stupid. What the hell are you guys doing? You know, people in Israel need to dial in. They need to put the shackles on their deep state. Every Western population needs to put the shackles on your deep state. Otherwise, you won't have a country to live in. Or if you do have a country to live in, it will be a tyrannical nightmare. This is a stupid, stupid, stupid move. And I know who the perpetrators are. These paranoid, schizophrenic Zionists, okay, who are over the top with it. Over the top with it. The hope for Israel is the future generations that are geared for economics, for business, for understanding that economics is the most powerful driver in human history, and the young Palestinian youth. And I'm hoping and praying to God that one day, you know, when these old fuddy-duddies are dead and gone, and we can bury the hate and the hatchet, Palestinians and Israelis could come together and freaking work on something for the love of God. Okay, it's not all Arabs and Jews hate each other. All right, so we need to get beyond that. Yes, I know about the whole, you know, how Israel came to existence in '48. I know about the whole Zionist thing, the view of Greater Israel, how they wanted to go to Uganda. I know all of that stuff. Okay, that's in the past, but what we have in the present is a ginormous cluster F, and we need to unravel. Unfortunately, we need to at some point fix this. This is a globalist created problem. This is a problem created by money powers, and it needs to get fixed. I know all about the history, but it needs to get fixed. It's up to us and future generations to unravel this ball of yarn. The only way you're going to do that is with trade. The only way you're going to do that is with money. That's what does it. That's what does it. Anyway, Georgi Schwartz has been exposed. What's going on over there, Siege?
Yeah, well, I think this needs to be, the next stage of what needs to happen. The Mueller investigation was, pretty much a gift when he started taking a look at Manafort and his involvement, with Russia, Ukraine, his political affiliations. It exposed a lot, and it's actually going to help be kind of like we covered earlier. This entire Uranium One deal, it's going to help to expose some of that. So he did us a big favor that by doing that. I think the next stage of this needs to be specifically going after a major figurehead, a major target that's going to send a message. And I think that message needs to be is to label George Soros and all of his NGOs, similar to what Russia has done, as an enemy of the state, seize his assets, and to specifically target him. I mean, George Soros is so corrupt. Let's take a look. Let's talk a little bit around his involvement in Ukraine specifically, and his involvement with the overthrow, using his NGOs. Everything this guy is tied to here domestically in the United States, his efforts to create as much chaos and disruption that's occurring. I guarantee you when you take a look at, Antifa, Pantifa, whatever you want to call them, I guarantee you that when you take a look somewhere, that some of their funding, some of their operation knowledge has probably trickled in from George Soros and his organizations. And I think to specifically target George Soros and his NGOs would be a big message, V.
Yep, absolutely correct, my man. Absolutely correct. It's time to shut this guy down. This guy is a globalist. This guy's the perfect Bond villain. Like, if there ever is a future James Bond movie, they should model the next Bond villain on a composite of George Soros, man. This guy is just unbelievably evil. He's involved in all sorts of shenanigans. He seeks power. Like this, I mean, George, you're almost dead. Georgi, you're almost dead. You could be dead any day now, you old bastard. But yeah, this is what he wants to do. Like he's bored out of his skull, and he wants to put $18 billion of his own money into these various terroristic proxy organizations. It's insanity, man. And this needs to stop. He needs to, and believe me, we know where his assets are. We know where they are. He needs to be arrested and stripped of it, and that's it. Yeah, that's it. He's going for broke, CJ, because he knows his beta male sons. There's nothing they could do. They're a bunch of pansies to begin with. Weakness breeds weakness, and there you see it in Georgi's sons. They have as much balls as Jared Kushner. Jeez. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the broadcast, my man. We got a busy day lined up.
Yeah, busy day. So 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, we will have Hang with Harley, which is always a great show. And then we'll follow that up at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, coming back with Cuss with Gus. It's always a lot of fun. Yeah, so it's an exciting day. It looks like Bitcoin just topped $7,000 for the first time.
What?
An all new high. Yeah. So
wow.
So lots of exciting things. Go to roguemoney.net, check out a couple articles. We threw one up by Harley Schlanger, and then also Ken Shorgan Jr. posted one as well yesterday. So go to roguemoney.net and check those out.
Yep, absolutely. You gotta love those forks, huh, CJ? What did I tell you? Don't worry about the forks. Don't fear the fork, man. Don't fear the fork. Bitcoin, $7,000. I love it. Love it. I love my portfolio. Okay. With that being said, folks, we're over and out. Take it away, CJ.